Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 265, Disaster Communications. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live calling show for Computer Repair Techs. We answer your questions on running your computer repair business. Calling number is 1-888-697-0162. The Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by the all-in-one platform created specifically for computer repair businesses. That's repairshopper.com. Sign up for a free trial today at repairshopper.com. And also by FreshBooks, the simple, pain-free invoicing solution for freelancers and small business owners. Try it free at freshbooks.com/podnutz. Let me introduce the co-host. We have Paco Lebron from ProdigyTeks. How you doing, Paco?
Better than good, better than most.
Good to have, man. Good to have you here, man. It's been a while since we've heard from you. And I know you got some things stirring, and you are one busy bee.
I got a couple things going on here and there. A couple things being planned for the local area. Have my business trying to get a couple things off the ground, get some certifications for the business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And some rebranding going on with the show that I took over from you, which will hopefully have some news here shortly coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome, man. All right. So why don't you start off with a personal tip or story that we could learn from?
Oh, I got a story for you.
All right. I'm ready.
So yesterday, as I'm sure a lot of people have heard or experienced on this nice, great Saturday morning, I was on my way of dropping off my daughter to her mother, and then all of a sudden I started getting alert emails from Ninja saying high memory utilization. Started coming up with a couple of machines. I said, oh, okay, they're probably running something, or I got a script running in the background because I have some scripts scheduled for that particular day. Then I noticed that my Dell Precision T7500, which has 96 gigs of RAM, gave me a memory utilization error of 85%. So I knew something was going on. So who do I normally poke? I went ahead and poked our good friend John Dubinsky, see if he's getting any alerts, because he is also a Ninja user. And he basically let me know, oh, I am getting pummeled this morning. So we've come to find out that we have both used Malwarebytes Cloud console, and Malwarebytes had an issue yesterday that caused basically a majority, or if not all, Malwarebytes endpoints, along with Malwarebytes Premium, to cause not the issue with the web protection, but also caused an issue with the memory utilization really eating up. So what we did was, the Malwarebytes guys were great. They were on it. We went through their forums. We poked a couple of the people that we kind of had some inside knowledge to, just because we have some inside tracks on some of those, just because of some of the things that we do here for the Great Network. And I was able to resolve my issue. This happened around 10 a.m. Central for me. I got my issue resolved around 12 or noon my time, where others were not as lucky. And John wasn't as lucky as well, where his issue didn't really get taken care of until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, my time, which was about several hours. Now, to be fair, this was a big issue. Nobody knew what was going on. They did push a fix update, and all you had to really do was just restart or run a script if you had to, through some of the forums and suggestions from other users. So it could have been a lot worse, in my opinion. I think it could have, the fact that it was taken care of in a day and it wasn't lingering is a big plus. And the fact that they were so on it on a Saturday morning. I know that a lot of SaaS support systems have an 18x5 support. I used to be support for a SaaS system back in the day, so I know how those things go. So I think they did a great job on getting back to it. And just one of those things that really ponder and make you think on other items, which this show we're hoping to cover is communications in an effect of a disaster or outage or interruption similar.
That's very good. And I will say that I always say this, and I say software is hard. And the things I've read about this whole issue, I agree with you. I think Malwarebytes responded to it quickly, took care of it. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth on whether or not maybe they did enough testing, or maybe what they did right, what they did wrong. But here's the bottom line. We are all prone to mistakes. And this is not the only company that has had these types of problems.
Exactly.
It happens with all of them. At one point or another, you're probably going to get interrupted on a Saturday morning, Sunday, or whatever. Now, I guess looking at this, my personal tip for this type of situation would be don't update on a Saturday. Yeah, do it on a Monday.
Well, I think the biggest piece to this is that we don't know if the updates were done automatically, depending on how the settings were set. But I think you made a big point, or a good point, is every company has a similar issue like this. And the biggest piece to this is why, A, you should have procedures in place, which is hopefully we'll talk about some of the things on what can do to alleviate this type of deal. Because I was fortunate because I only have so many endpoints, whereas bigger businesses who have maybe 1,000 endpoints, servers that they have to get into, they couldn't remote into, it's going to be a hairy day. I mean, these are the type of deals where you want to make sure that you have a plan in place so that you are paid enough for what you're offering, so that when incidents like this happen, yeah, it sucks, but at least you're compensated for. So it's just something to just relook at your process as a learning situation and see if you need to put some things back to the drawing board.
That's a good way to put it. I think it's it's something you definitely need to look at. And here's where, when you are charging enough in this particular situation, like you said, it's hurtful, but at the end of the day, during your lulls where you don't have a whole lot going on, yet you're still getting repaid because you're taking care of that customer on an ongoing basis, and you're doing what's best for them. That those are the good days. So I guess in this business, being service oriented, we have to take the good with the bad. That's just the way it is. Not every day is going to be a good day, and not every day is going to be a bad day. As a matter of fact, if you have more bad days than you do good days, you might want to think about doing something else.
And you know what? Jerry Bransfield made a good point in the chat, is that, we would rather have this on a weekend than on a weekday, especially like on a busy Monday. So, and especially if it was, perfect example, we're on the 28th. Monday, we're at month's end. So I'm sure for our clients that have accounting and payroll and things like that are going on, imagine if it happened this Monday. Oh, I'm sure it would be a much way worse situation on mitigation than it was on a weekend. Yeah, you had to do a weekend support. And that's kind of something that we're going to talk about today. Is that something you offer, or is that something that's extra? And does this constitute as an emergency, and how you kind of classify those type of things as well?
Yeah, and that's all going to come down to whether you're doing this dollar per hour or you're basically doing it as an all-you-can-eat type of method. And there's many different ways to skin a cat. At the end of the day, you just want to make sure that you're compensated enough in that year's time that it makes sense to continue to do what you're doing in your business, so that you can feel comfortable, you can do the things that you want to do. And again, you've got the good and the bad. And I was being a little facetious. From my standpoint, or from our standpoint, the tech standpoint, no, I'd rather have it on a Monday when I'm like available and ready to take calls. I don't want it on a Saturday where I got to run around and manually restart servers and all that kind of stuff. And
that's something we'll talk about too, because it goes into what are your support hours, and Correct. It's what you designate too. So I mean, like exactly like you said, for you, your weekend's your weekend. So some of these things that are outside of your own hands, you can do nothing but walk away. And for your business model, if you're doing an 18x5, or if you're doing a 8x, what is it, 8x5 by 5, I think is what it's, I can't think of what it is, but essentially, if you set your hours to what it is, and your customers know that, and you don't have an ability to charge extra for that for after hours, then that's an opportunity for you as well. Or on the flip side, if this is a really good client for you and you don't offer this, and this is a really big black eye for you, maybe something to think about to step up before someone goes ahead and takes that lunch.
That's a good point. And I the one person who I'd love to hear from is Matt Rainey, because I know he doesn't work the weekends. So they're not going to mitigate this until probably Monday. And yet his business is going for a very long time, and they do just fine. So it'd be interesting to hear somebody from that side of the coin go, no, these are our hours. This is what we do. This is our support time frame, where a lot of other people will do 6, 7 days a week. Some will cut it back to 5, but and then be there when they need to on the weekend periodically. So there's a lot of different ways to do this.
Yep.
Let's take a quick break, and then we will get into this main topic. Our show today is brought to you by Repair Shopper, the all-in-one platform created specifically for computer repair businesses. It was developed by Troy Anderson, who owned his own computer repair MSP business for 10 years, which prompted him to create Repair Shopper, obviously to make his life easier. He found himself using multiple tools day to day just to be able to run his business, and realized it was taking time away from doing what he loved most, serving his customers. That's a lofty goal right there. Serve your customers. If that's where the enjoyment's at, much more than the paperwork, I would 100% agree with them. We love Repair Shopper because it contains all the essentials: point of sale, customer relationship management, ticketing, integrated invoices, estimates, and payments, plus powerful extras like built-in marketing and reporting tools, which I know Paco loves. He loves to see the reports. It is truly the most complete computer repair business solution available. It's also fully customizable to fit your shop's workflow and integrates with a variety of tools like QuickBooks, Slack, and Kabuto, just to name a few. Their support team is great and will give you a full walkthrough of the system when you create an account. Check them out at repairshopper.com, where you can sign up for a free trial. And that's Repair Shopper with 1 P and no E, because E's are evil. So anyways, go ahead and go over to repairshopper.com and check them out. It's free to do it, and they will give you a beautiful walkthrough, which will give you an understanding of the system so that you can fit it to your business. All right, Paco. So we're going to talk about when things like what happened with Malwarebytes and other companies happens periodically. How do you properly communicate to your clients during an emergency outage? Yep. Because it's not if it happens, it's when it happens.
Right. So this prompted me to think about my days back at when I was saying as working at a SaaS company, which for those that don't know, SaaS is basically a software as a service. And basically it's a lot of these cloud services,
by the way.
And damn straight, I love my reports. But anyway, so as I was saying, so working at a SaaS company, there's a lot of things that kind of run around and things that you got your servers hosting these systems, these services that we all kind of are reliant on. And the biggest piece on one of these is the fact that what we try to do is we try to go ahead and move forward with, one, the customer in place, and two, making sure that the communication is sound. Now, so this kind of brought me back to those days this morning or yesterday morning. And the biggest thing that you have to do is when you get prompted with this, when you realize that there's an issue, is to stay calm. Don't freak out. Don't start, trying to figure out what you're going to do. You got to realize two things. Can you control what's happening or can you not? Is this your error or is this someone else's error? Now, not to say that, put the blame on the vendor, but the biggest piece is that you have to understand that if it's something that's they're causing, there's nothing you can do. So that's the first thing. The second piece is that you want to make sure that you figure out what is your hours that you're going to support your customers. So for me, I only support my customers 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. Those are my hours. That's what I deal with. Now, yes, some of these are paying managed services. Yes, if I figure out something, I'll try and fix it in the back end. But as far as communications, when issues get reported, I'm not responding to any of those customers until Monday. That's just how I have it set. That gives me the ability to fix what's going on, and then I can reply back to them as to what's going on. Now, a majority of my clients are residential, and quite few of them are businesses. Luckily, only my residential clients knew what was going on or reported an issue, whereas my small businesses did not, or they didn't report it because they felt like something was going on. Now, this is upon you as a business, what you want to do at this point. My personal opinion on what we've done is on Monday, when tomorrow comes, I'll communicate to the two people that reach out to us. Hey, we did have an issue. We apologize for the inconvenience. This is what's going on. Now, had it been a business and there are some action items that need to take place, involving that client base, then I would probably send out a notification during the weekend or whenever I find out that the issue is happening, email them and let them know, hey, we had this issue. We're going to probably have to do some maintenance tonight, but we're going to require your users to do X, which brings in a big point of the fact that when it comes to communications, not everyone needs to know. So especially if you have businesses, you want to just email whoever is responsible for the operations. So the office managers, the VPs, et cetera, that let them know, because the higher ups are probably the ones cutting the check and the office manager is just, passing out the check and not really signing it. But essentially the biggest piece of this is that you want to make sure whoever is involved is in the know so they can spread the word out. Because the last thing you want to do is send out a mass communication to everybody. And if you send it to everybody, it's going to cause all kinds of hysteria. And then if it's in a weekend when you don't support, you're going to have a lot more tickets coming in on Monday. So the biggest piece on this communication portion is to make sure that when you communicate this out, communicate to the people that are what's the best word to say it? Basically the big players on who helped make the company go. And if you need to, the higher ups, then you have to obviously send it out if you have some type of SLA or some type of service agreement, letting them know. So that's the biggest piece. You don't want to get everybody involved, but you want to get enough so that they are aware of what's going on. So that's the first part.
Now, as far as usually a business will have a point of contact.
Yes.
And that is usually the person that you need to, and these need to be conversations, like I said, not if, when this happens.
Right.
You need to have something set in place to where you can go to that office manager or whoever your point of contact is and goes, if this is the scenario and we have something, servers down, workstations are down, everything's running slow, everything's a mess, and we realize that a piece of software has caused this, then here are the steps we're going to take. So when I send a communication to you, it's going to be your job on the floor where you're at to take care of the worker bees that are basically at that office. Somebody's got to do it. And I agree with you. You cannot cause mass panic and confusion, because if you were to send it to everybody that has a workstation at that business, this story is going to get so misconstrued that you could look like a complete buffoon, even though it's not your problem. Really.
Yep. So you hit a good part where you want to make sure that you don't cause mass hysteria, but you also want to make sure people are informed. Now, I went in the residential as more of the bigger piece of it, but let's go ahead and flip into the side if it's a small business. Now, let's say you support businesses that have maybe 10, 15, 20 people. Maybe you have a lot of bigger enterprises that have more people that are involved, and you only have one set of contacts or a team that you go to, et cetera, whatever that issue may be. What you can also do is set up an auto responding or what is it called? Auto respond. Well, help me out here. The term
autoresponder.
There you go. That's the one. So set up an autoresponder in the email address and I'm hoping everyone's using a support email address and not your individual email or whatever your individual email may be. It's a individual email, but you have another individual email that goes directly to you. And this one is being used for support. This is a good opportunity to do that separation so that to let them know if they email you directly, there's a delay. But if they email the support email, that's how they get their tickets created. That's how they go ahead and get all their information. And specifically, that's going to be the best turnaround time to get their issue resolved. But by setting up an autoresponder, whether it's via your email, whether it's via your ticketing system, this allows you to do that auto reply and letting them know when you know that there's an issue going on, but you just don't have the time to answer each individual call or each individual email that's coming in. Plus, it also resolves the issue of hoping that one contact will go ahead and speak out to everyone who's had the issue, because we all know we have those lovely employees of a particular business that think their issue is still happening on a Wednesday when it was resolved on a Monday, but one hand wasn't talking to the other. And usually those employees think that they have power to kind of strut around and say, hey, this issue is not resolved. I'm going to go to my boss, huff, etc., when it was really resolved. So this helps solve the communication internally. And it also solves the communication from your team as the IT business to that other small business on what's going on.
Right. And I think the other thing that you said earlier too is not getting excited about these things and basically throwing a temper tantrum or whatever it is you want to call it, jumping up and down. You want to compose yourself, because if you're that type of person who composes themselves to whoever you're supporting, usually when a situation like this happens, even though it might come off as they're blaming you, the reality is they know what type of person you are and they know what type of support that you normally give them, and that you're going to take care of it in a timely manner as best as you possibly can, so that you have to be able to, mitigate all those things before they happen, before things get misconstrued. And I think that communication is probably the number one thing. If you communicate, and usually email's the best way in a lot of cases to communicate to your customer. Now, if a customer calls in, here's the other thing too. There's a lot of people that were answering their phones, trying to mitigate this on the fly. Yeah, I'm not answering my phone. I don't even answer my phone for my regular customers. It goes to voicemail. And so I will call them back. I know John, he's the same way. You can call his phone all day long. He ain't picking it up. You want support? Like Paco said, you're going to send a support ticket in, and it will get taken care of in whatever form and fashion it needs to. But he doesn't pick up his phone all the time. That takes so much time in a day. So you have to be able to understand and build your business out in a way that's not going to constrain you. If you're at a customer's and you're doing something, I never answer the phone then, because right now my concentration is on a customer. I give them my full my full self to resolve whatever problem we're resolving for them. Then I will take care of the others later. So an autoresponder is a great idea, because that gets a lot, at least it gets some sort of communication going back. And I think a lot of people probably don't do that because they don't want to take the time to set it up, or it happens on the fly. And then what do you do? But I think there are different ways that you can communicate with your customer to make it make sense for both sides. Again, they don't understand.
Right.
They just want the problem resolved.
Right.
You don't want to work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Now, they're not going to realize that, because they don't understand that in order for you to, they're not your only customer. And
Right.
most people don't realize that, because they have these blinders on. And at the time that they're down, they're focused on one thing and one thing only: getting back up. And at that point, they look at it and say, I am the only customer that's important.
So there's a couple things that you said, and this is something that I learned. They may not have created this because of me in my early years at this company, but essentially the saying was, it's not our fault, but it's our problem.
Mhm.
And because I used to go around where in my younger age, where we used to work with a lot of third party providers to provide our solution to the end customer. Now, sometimes what ended up happening is we would piecemeal some of this, where we would go ahead and work with some of their vendors to get the end customer's thing taken care of. What would find out most times than not that it was the vendor's issue, not us. And I would always say, it's not a problem. Talk to them. not really good customer service if we on that point. So what I've quickly learned, and this is what I've been able to adopt in my own business, is sometimes if you can be the champion for your customer, no matter what the issue is, not only does that look good for you, but it helps embed yourself into their business. So perfect example, let's say that they purchased their own backup system. So Carbonite, whatever, or let's say that they go through their own leasing option or whatever the case may be. Or perfect example, a website developer who is updating their website changes the MX records or the IP address that you previously configured already in your Office 365, you weren't notified, so it broke their email. So these are things where it's not your problem. They didn't give you the info. They're yelling at you like, why is my email not working? By being able to coordinate all parties together, telling the customer, I'm your point person, I will give you the updates. Don't worry about what anybody else is saying. I will make sure that this gets solved. And you going through the motions and going through all this effort, making sure A, he understands you're taking care of it. B, going ahead and making sure that he gets all the services and everything and what he wants it fixed and getting the solution done. And third, you're getting paid for it. So not only can you bill for this, but it also makes you look good because you went ahead and took care of this. And when it comes to the RCA, which is the root cause analysis at the end of all of this, the biggest piece is how can we avoid this? And you can basically now upsell him on the opportunities that you may have to keep this as a solution all in one.
Right. I think too, yeah, setting this up as a way to not only look internally at your business also and look at these things that you're going to provide your customer and try to avoid later down the road. See, here's the thing. I don't look at failures as a failure. A lot of people, they do. I don't understand. If I were to go through my life looking at every failure I have, I might as well dig a hole in the ground and fall into it and call it a day, because that's just foolishness. Every failure I've ever had in my life, and I've had more than I can count. I probably had more than group any 10 people together. But the reality is I've learned something from each and every one of those. And so this is a perfect opportunity to take exactly whatever's happened, even if you don't have things in place, and go, you know what? This happened. This bit me. It was very painful, but here's what I'm going to do moving forward. A lot of times what'll happen is, if we go back to the simple days of, hey, don't touch the stove, it's hot. Ow. Yeah, it was hot. Now you can bandage your hand up, and you can either, when it's healed, you can sit there and go and touch the stove again and burn your hand, or you can learn from that experience and go, I'm never going to do that again. That's your choice. So it's hard to do what we do in the service industry and not get something that's not going to work. Think about all the things, all the pieces we have working together. You've got operating systems, you've got this program, and you've got that program, and you've got this talking to this and that talking to that. And all this stuff is trying to come together, and you have one little mishap. Oh my gosh. Man down, man down. and so you need to look at stuff like that. But yeah, every experience, every failure, everything that you don't have in place right now, don't look at it as, oh man, I really screwed up. No.
Right.
Hey, look at it as, I'm not going to do that again. Here's what we're going to do to mitigate that in the future.
Right. And I think a bigger piece, kind of like Jerry also made a good point on, hey, does this change your view on Malwarebytes after Saturday's events or any other vendor? You know, Viper had an issue a couple years ago. Webroot had an issue last year, you know, and this is a big issue, or this is a big thing where you kind of want to figure out, does that change your view on the product that you picked? And what I would say to that, as far as communications and how this all ties in, is hopefully you're vetting all your vendors to a point where you're sticking with whoever it is. John and I kind of went through this process in the late half of 2017 and made the decision that who we're using right now is who we're going to stick with. And like you mentioned, everyone always has, you know, it happens. It's business. Something happens. They move on. They hopefully learn from those mistakes and get better. And that's how you get great services. That's how you get great products. Now, the question becomes, should you change your view on a vendor when you keep getting kind of the bad side or the blunt side of the situation? And the biggest piece you want to make sure you understand is that you don't always want to switch when things get rough. You want to make sure that you switch when it's really just not beneficial to your business and it's causing you more money and you're losing time with it. Because I can tell you that if this happened again later on in the year, I might not be as acceptable to the situation depending on how it was attacked. And when I say attacked, is how did that company try to mitigate and extinguish this issue? And to me, the way that Malwarebytes did what they did, and you know me, I'm not a favorite to any type of vendor. I don't have any loyalty. I don't have anything as far as that is concerned. You know, they don't pay me for these type of things. I say my things candidly because of that reason. And I think the fact that they've showed their true colors, being on top of this and getting it taken care of, versus like Microsoft that one time where they released like 3 bad updates that still caused a bad loop coming on over and over again. Not to pick on Microsoft because it's a bigger enterprise, bigger things, bigger checks that they have to do versus a smaller company. But the biggest piece is it's how the service works. And it's the same thing that you can take back to yourself. Would you want someone to leave you as your customers because you goofed up once? You know, if that was the case of how society is, then we'd be all screwed. So this is something where communications makes that much difference, where we expect them to give us the most up-to-date information. It's on us to make sure that we communicate to our customers, depending on what type of platform, what you've designated, what expectations you set to them to ensure that you have kind of a similar relationship as well. So changing views on products, I'm hoping that you did the best that you can to vet them. If you haven't, this is a good opportunity to do so. So you know who you're sticking with. You're sticking with them for a reason because of the technologies, the time they're saving you, and the money they're making you, that which is hopefully should be more.
And I know a lot of people when these situations happen, they will rush to go, I'm not going to recommend this product anymore. I'm going to recommend this product. Like that product is the perfect product that will never break. And somebody made a good point. You were talking about Microsoft, you know, and I'm seeing it in the chat room. A lot of people are talking about Microsoft. You know, are we really going to leave Microsoft and go to what?
Linux?
I mean, please. They wish that would happen, but it's not going to happen. So the reality is there are some things that you're stuck with. And when it's good most of the time, and you have to gauge that, what is most of the time? Here's the reality. Paco, in a year's time, how many mistakes do you make on an annual basis?
That are visible or that are not?
Just in general, just how many mistakes do you think you make during the year?
I couldn't even count them if I tried.
Exactly. I remember going back to, we're going to talk about this a little bit, going back to, we're putting parts on a line. Everybody knows I work in an assembly plant. We're putting the parts on. I missed one part out of thousands of parts for that shift, 8, 10, 11, 12 hours, whatever it is, thousands of parts, miss one. All of a sudden they come down and they're going to write me up because I missed one part in a shift. And I remember them telling me this. And I when they told me, I told them they shouldn't have ever told me this. But they said the person on the end of the line that was actually checking all the vehicles that were coming down with all the parts to make sure that everything was there and all the stuff was bought off on, that person was only good to like 78%, something like that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If that person's only good to 78% and I'm less than 0.001% of a mess up,
why am I getting written up?
How does that equate? I don't get that. So the reality is we, as people, as human beings, we're going to make mistakes all the time. This is part of life. This is what we do. Right. And we have to look at those things and go, now, if we're buying a product or service and it's messing up once a month, we might look at that and go, that might be a little bit too much. Once every 6 months, maybe it's okay. Once a year, once every couple years, whatever you feel you're going to have. Now, again, you got to remember that these companies, especially companies like the antivirus companies, they're always chasing the bad guys. This is never a sit still and we can just stand in place and be all right. We are constantly chasing the bad guys. And you build a mousetrap, the mouse just gets smart. Right. And figures out a way around that. So this is happening all the time. So you're in this constant loop where things are going to happen. And what I do like about now, as far as a company responding, I've gotten 2 emails from 2 separate individuals over at Malwarebytes in this particular case that laid out, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but laid out exactly what happened and why, in the things behind it, so we can have a better idea of, okay, hey, not a big deal. Now, do you have to take that information and take it to your customer and tell them exactly all the dirty details of what went on? No. You don't have to do that. All you got to do is tell them, listen, they had a problem with one of their updates. We're on it. We're here. That's what we do. We're going to fix the problem. Just take a deep breath and it'll all be fine.
Right. And I think the biggest piece too is to understand, like, kind of in our situation is sometimes we don't know it all. And sometimes we are going to be thrown into something that we just are not familiar with. And that's why we have that great community that we have with our colleagues, me being able to poke John. For those that were in our computer repair podcast Facebook group, I tried to give up the heads up to a lot of people there. A lot of them did get the update, and I think there was a gentleman there as well, kind of mentioned that he kind of just went through it solo, and didn't realize once he went back to the CRP group that I had got out the word a little bit earlier. And that's just an advantage to know that you have a community that you can rely on to help you as well. And again, this is why we have those communities. That's why we have everyone donating to the group, is to the show, is so that we can help provide value in that way, and being able to really just get a good feel of understanding that we're going to provide as much value to everyone. But the biggest piece out of that is to make them grow and help them get better. So whether it's worksheets, whether it's implementing some things into your system, or just on our journey on trying to figure out other things with our own business, this is kind of a good understanding that, hey, this is why we do the show. This is why we do these things, and just communication altogether is just one piece that you can help get better at with your business.
Absolutely. And what do they say? Get better, not bitter.
I never heard that one.
I don't know where I heard it. I did not come up with it, but it was many, many moons ago. But yeah, the reality is, when it comes to a situation like this, we're talking about learning from your experiences. Get better, not bitter. The wonderful thing about experiences is experience is the best teacher as long as it's somebody else's experience.
Right. Yep.
So, that's something to be thought about when you think about these groups that get together. Our community that communicates with each other on a regular basis and gets this information. Like Paco said, this is why we do it. There are a bazillion more things that I could think about doing on a Sunday afternoon, but I enjoy trying to help others grow their business, make their lives better, maybe bring out some points that maybe people aren't thinking about or people aren't talking about. It's important to me because I feel that this industry, I don't care what anybody says. This is going to be a side tangent, but it's going to be a good one. I was talking to my wife earlier.
Story time with Jeff.
And one of the things we were talking about is a lot of people are going, hey, man, you know what? The computer business, it's dying. IT is dead, and this and that and the other. And there are people out there that are telling, hey, people are living on their cell phones and different things and in tablets and whatnot. I started thinking about this, and it just hit me today. I don't know why. The life cycle of a phone, like a decent phone, like a $700,000-$800,000 phone, about 2 years. Tablet, whether it's a $250 tablet or an $800 tablet, it's about 2 years. It's about what you're going to get out of it. Where it's going to work well to where you're not pulling your hair out and going, oh my gosh, this is so slow. Why is this not working correctly? What is broken down? And the reason I say that is because the experiences I've had with tablets and phones, right around that 2-year mark, all of a sudden it's like they're okay. So I started thinking about it. I go, man, you can get a decent desktop computer for getting online and just doing the things that you need to do. You can do worksheets, whatever. And desktop computers are $300 to replace them. You get those anywhere for the regular home residential consumer. Now, we used to have this thing where in the US, where they would subsidize for your phones. So you could get a new phone every couple of years for a couple $100. You pay a higher premium on your service. That's just kind of how they pulled all that stuff away.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're paying, and I don't care whether it's on a monthly payment or what, you're telling me that an average person that doesn't replace their computer, but once every 10 years is all of a sudden going to drop $700 to $1,000 every 2 years. I think not, people. This is my prediction. You're going to see some things going back to the not so smart devices and probably regular desktops and laptops and different things, because the reality is, and I was talking to my wife, I said, what happens when you can't do something on your phone? She goes, well, I go to my laptop. It's not going away. And as much as everybody would love to think it is, if you think about the small form factor devices and how they heat up and cool down and heat up and cool down at an astronomical rate compared to something that's got a lot more air and openness to it and tends to last a lot longer for a whole lot less. Now, there'll probably be people out there that say, "Oh, well, they're gonna make the phones cheaper." Not if they can help it, they won't. Why would they?
Right.
They've already got us. You want to communicate? You want a cell phone? Oh no. This is what we're doing. Sorry. Hey, it's only $25 a month.
Till VR comes around.
That's how we live our lives, right? Paycheck to paycheck. Anyways. All right. So side tangent done.
Paycheck to paycheck. Oh man.
Anyways, so yeah, I think there's a lot of things that I think this was a great topic that Paco brought up. I almost called you Taco again, man. Wow.
Hey, don't trigger Marvin on Podnutz Pro to start doing that again. So
I was the one that started. It was a totally 100% accident.
No, I know, but you know how he gets. But anyway,
I'm not going to continue.
We miss Marvin. We miss Marvin over here.
So I think that a lot of things that people need to think about is, how do you mitigate this? How do you learn from it? How do you move forward when this happens again? Because it will. And whether it's Microsoft or, like you guys said, Viper, WebRoot, McAfee, God forbid, Norton.
I just did a Norton install the other day too, because someone was just hell bent saying that they're still the bee's knees, but don't even get me started.
That's funny because I still remember, this was probably a couple years ago. Somebody had Norton and they had gotten sold the whole package and they paid whatever price for it. And they had the Norton Techs on there. And I think this was like third level support or something like that. They went through the system and this computer was so dog slow, just so slow. They go through, they clean it, they do all these different things to it. 3 hours on its computer, on the phone. I come in, it was less than 15 minutes. I had it fixed. I'm like, whew, I haven't seen that virus in a long time.
Wow.
I think that was at that Powlix.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
See what you did?
I know.
Marvin's in the chat.
Oh, he's
starting it up again. There we go. But no, I think kind of wrapping this up, and then we can probably go for a break, is for any of you that have any good suggestions on what do you do for communications. Do you have any diagrams? Do you have any worksheets? Do you have any checklists? I'd be really interested to see, for those that have donated to this Computer Repair Podcast, comment below the episode that Jeff had posted and just throw up some things and see what they have to offer. Because I'm sure there's things that probably are that I've done outdated that maybe I haven't considered that they're maybe doing to a smaller scale, or that would be more beneficial to one-man armies / a little bit bigger IT businesses that are trying to get a hold of these type of things and standardize them.
Excellent. And also, if you're not part of the Facebook group yet, again, we encourage you, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We've got a couple new Patreon supporters, but you can also email the show, podnutz@podnutz.com, and let us know what you do, and we can share it on the show. And this is where the community comes together. We do have a call-in number that if you're here on a Sunday or around the area, you can definitely call that number and we can chat online. But if not, we can at least read it, email, or you can call that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get a voicemail, and we will play the voicemail on the show to get your take on what it is you do in your business. Because again, we're coming from our perspective, but I don't always think of everything.
Right.
Paco doesn't always think of everything. And the collective community is where we get our information from, in where they say a rising tide raises all ships.
Yep.
So that's what we're here to do. All right, let's take a quick break, as Paco has already alluded to. Our show today is brought to you by FreshBooks. A quick question for all of you trailblazing freelancers. If you could reclaim up to 192 hours a year of your precious time, would you? I think most people would say, yes, I would. Our friends at FreshBooks, who make a ridiculously easy to use cloud accounting software for freelancers, are the architects behind that question. And for a good reason. By simplifying tasks like invoicing, tracking expenses, and getting paid online, FreshBooks has drastically reduced the time it takes over 5 million people to deal with their paperwork. If that's not enough incentive, the FreshBooks platform has been rebuilt from the ground up. They've taken simplicity and speed to an entirely new level and added powerful new features. Oh, and if you're doing the math, 192 hours of work, it works out to about 2 working days per month. Get 2 working days per month back. When tax time does roll around, you'll find tidy summaries of your expense reports, your invoice details, your sales tax summaries, and a lot more. If you're a freelancer listening to this and not using FreshBooks yet, now would be the time to try it. FreshBooks is offering a 30-day unrestricted free trial to my listeners. To claim it, just go to freshbooks.com/podnuts. Enter Podnutz in the How Did You Hear About It section. All right. Let's go ahead and let's see. What we can do? We don't have any emails and we don't have any voicemails this week. So what we can do is we can wait around a little bit. If you have some questions in the chat room or the phone lines are open, the call-in number is 1-888-697-0162. If you want to ask any questions, we can answer those questions now.
What's the number again?
Well, no, I was going to ask you. So what else is going on in your business as of late?
Give me 1 second. What's the number again?
1-888-697-0162. 0162. And normally I would have my lower third up, but
no, I screwed it up.
Mine's broken. That was close.
There we go. Gotcha. No, as far as for my business, I have kind of what I talked about in Podnutz Daily 500. I've restructured quite a bit of the pricing that I've been doing on my business. So what I've done is, versus going from a managed service, or let me rephrase that. My managed services plans, I was doing per endpoint on a 3-tier scale, where basic would just be the software, intermediate would provide limited online remote and phone and email support, and then the next tier would basically include several hours of on-site on top of the previous tiers. And what I've done is it was a real hard sell to people because they felt that they had their protection in place, and they felt that it just wasn't really it was too much for what they needed it for. So what I've gone ahead and done is restructured my first tier. Instead of it being a managed service agreement per se, I've changed the wording to being a retainer client. And what I've done is I'm pre-selling prepaid hours, 10 minimum. So, and I charge about $150 an hour. So I'm charging at $1,500 a block. So the goal is to have cash flow coming in that aspect of it. And then from what I've looked at for some of the businesses that I'm selling this to, I do about 2.5 to 3 hours of work every month anyway. So in reality, it's about close to what I would ask for on a quarterly basis for these businesses on a retainer. And what my plan is to do is, if this becomes a big hit, instead of in the coming year, or probably in the next half of the year, instead of it being retainer, I'm going to just basically rename it to being managed, but they're paying for the labor, and then everything else will be added on. And that's a similar model that John Dubinsky does with the Maven Group, where he has a monthly fee that's his own fee, and then basically adds on whatever it is. And the biggest piece that I've learned from reading a ebook that IT Glue had was learning the lean principle. And one of them was saying, ensure that you're selling only what's needed to the customer and you're not overselling. So if they need X, Y, and Z, but your service that you purchase offers, 1, 2, and 3, exclude those. And if they want it later on, you can add it as a secondary package or a secondary add-on and still make more money on the same price that you've been selling it at. So it's things like that, and just restructuring pricing on that aspect. We also just finished submitting our information for being an MBE, which is a minority business enterprise. It's a certification to basically be known as a minority business, or a minority business owner owns the business. And the reason why that's important for me is because, being that I've been involved with some nonprofit work and being a member of the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, that allows me to bid on projects that have been set aside to minority or women-owned businesses. So this is a certification that's done by state or city. State normally. So for us, I kind of found a loophole for those of us that are in Illinois and are of a woman or minority. You will be able to actually apply for free if you're a state through the state versus doing it through your own city, because through the city they charge you a fee. So that's why I'm going that route to get that certification to open up some opportunities on some of these websites like vendorregistry.com and so forth and so on, to get a couple corporate, not corporate, but more government contracts through that official bidding process.
Okay. So you're in, one of the things that you're doing is you're doing retainer, which obviously you're offering, because a lot of people are going, well, why wouldn't I just charge people as I go anyways? But you're probably offering them a premium support as far as putting them in front of the queue because they've already prepaid for hours versus if somebody comes to you outside of that, right?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I had to distinguish that a little bit to exactly like you said. What's the point of me paying 10 hours up front when I could just pay it on demand for the same price? So what I've done is I've raised my rates to $165 an hour on demand. In reality, for new clients and stuff like that, I may go back to the original 150, but that's what I do to differentiate. Hey, at 150 at 10, you're going to use this time. You can get it at the 150 rate and save $15 on the hour. And then what I also do is I also change up depending on what that customer needs. So for example, I have a customer that does vacations by train. And what they do is they need a standardized image for their machines. And rather than charging him on demand and then a monthly fee for storing the image, I basically said, okay, pre-purchase 10 hours. Every 10 hours you pre-purchase, and we will store the image on some dedicated, cloud server or probably a local drive here with a backup, and we'll keep it on file. So that way, every time you need a new machine's re-imaged, we'll do that for you. And so that's kind of the agreement from there. Some of them I'll just simply say, look, it's a better rate. I think the bigger piece of it too is that, some of them are trying to get rid of level one tasks. So I would emphasize, hey, we will provide you phone and email support similar to our managed service clients. We can't provide you the security endpoint protection that we want, but we can at least support you. That'll be part of this, and how we do half an hour minimums if it's only within 15 minutes versus a full hour like other MSPs and so forth and so on. So we try to, depending on the client, we'll restructure our saying, but it's normally the same. Phone and support, this is what you're getting, a cheaper rate. And in the long run, you might save a little bit more as well.
Very cool. Now, let me ask you another question, because this came up, and I know the response that I had said last week is we're looking at the IT course that Google was putting out.
Yep.
And you said you were a part of it and checking it out. Have you done anything with that yet?
I have not. So I did look into it. I was going to enroll. I understood that Google was going to subsidize it. I did look at the criteria. A lot of the curriculum is of basic IT support for the first portion of it, but it does go into very specific networking and other items that I did go through when I was getting my engineering degree, but that was well over 11 years ago. So this is good refresher for me to understand, because see, my biggest piece as an IT tech is when, and I'm sure a lot of other IT business owners or techs get this when talking to other techs. Some just remember the stuff a lot more front of mind than others, or they'll word it a certain way where it just goes over the head. So, we all learn in our own way. So I may know, when someone says, hey, how does your stack look? I don't know what you're talking about. But if he tells me, hey, how's your equipment looking? How's your network setup going? Oh, it's XYZ. This is the equipment I'm using. This is what's going on, etc. So it's those type of things where I think this will help reassociate those terms. And especially a lot of the ones that are being thrown out with now, especially with cloud stuff, and help get back to basics of you have learned, but kind of just fell out the back of your head because you learned your own way. You gained the experience, which is what this business is all about, and help tie some of that back in.
Now, there's in my opinion, there's two types of people. There's the cool people and there's the non-cool people. And the non-cool people, they use words like stacks for, I don't understand why, because to them it sounds cool. But let me tell you, it doesn't.
No, I mean, and the biggest advantage that I received, and this is why I was so successful at my last job where I was at for 7 years, which is the same SaaS company that I told you that was an automotive software firm, is me being the way that I am versus as in this aspect of I talk. What's the best way to say this? I write how I talk. So grammar wise, me writing things or explaining things have always been a person to person thing. And I learned that back when I was working for the city of Chicago for 5 years. By me getting an engineering degree, I can understand a lot of what they're talking about. And the other piece of it too is the fact that I've talked to other engineers, especially what made me successful as a database engineer during those 7 years at the automotive software firm and then the 3 at the pharmaceutical consulting firm, is I can translate what they are talking about to the tier 2 people who are trying to get more done, but also how the company was trying to divvy up kind of the actions and duties. I now was able to explain to them how to do something, which, like you said, in the way that the terminology, if we use cool kids versus not cool kids, I was one of the cool kids to understand what the non-cool kids were talking about and explaining it to them on what needed to be done, and they got it. And the biggest reaction or reply that I always got from them is, why couldn't they tell us that way? Well, I don't know, so they can feel better about themselves. I can't tell you what it is. I mean, honestly, that's how I feel. I think sometimes they have the opportunity to speak to make sense, but sometimes when you talk exactly what it is that what you've learned, and when somebody doesn't understand in the mindset that you get it, it may be frustrating. That's what I've seen with engineers, but I've seen both sides. Sometimes the level 2 guys are not the sharpest tools in the shed. It's kind of a give or take. But I think the biggest piece of where I'm going with all this is that going back to that Google course, some may feel that it's just a play for Google just to get more information. It may just be unnecessary. I think it might be a true benefit. And this is what I talked about. I don't know if I talked about it on the show or if I wrote it in an email to someone, but I think this is an opportunity that won't cost anything. You can rehash your skills. And for those that are not as comfortable in certain areas to take over something, this is a great opportunity to get into that beginning stage of it and then start applying it to what you want to do locally or to your clients. Because I know for me, like with corporate networks and building out servers, I can maintain them. But architecting one and setting it up from scratch on what their needs are, it's not my strong point, and I have somebody that I rely on. But if that person were ever to get hit by a bus, I'm in deep trouble. So,
and I think coming from the standpoint of, I think when there is information that is out there, and you said that course is free from Google, right?
My understanding is they subsidize the course to be free, but when I registered on the site, it was saying $49. So I got to figure out what that is. So I'll talk about it probably more on my show. What exactly it is once I've gone through it. My understanding is they said they were going to subsidize it. What they subsidized it to, I thought I heard it was free from someone. I thought I read it, and when I went to the course, it said $49. I don't know if I went through the right way, so I still got to do some more digging in there. But I did take a look at the agenda, and it seems to be something of value.
Well, and when you think about $49 to invest in your business, that's very inexpensive. Right. And definitely probably well worth the time. Here's the thing. I believe in a lot of these courses and a lot of things, if you've got the time to do it, you can only be better for it because you're going to learn something out of there or take something away, or even from the standpoint of learn the things that you're not going to do. And so again, that's going to be a help. Jerry's asking a question, Jerry Bransfield, from your area.
Yep.
In the Chicago greater area.
Good friend of ours.
He's asking a question. He's asking about the would Paco or Jeff Paco and the crew ever consider taking a look at UVK D7 Ninja or another product? And I think what he's talking about is in the secret Facebook group. I'm glad you brought this up, Jerry. Talking about actually going through these products and showing how we use these individual products. Maybe doing a tag team effort between Paco and myself, or John or whomever, come together, bringing that information so that everybody could learn from, because a lot of times we talk about this stuff and we talk about using software, but it's kind of this in the background. Nobody really knows how we use it. So this would be a perfect opportunity. And yes, that is on the horizon of things that we want to do in the secret Facebook group, to have better information for you guys to see on the fly what we're doing. Maybe even taking a computer that's down and going through the process of, here's what we do, and here's how we mitigate the whole situation, and here's our process going from point A to point B. A lot of times, because there's not video, there is video here, but it's talking heads. We kind of go through the things that we do, and you've got to pretty much, in your mind, figure out what we're talking about. So when we talk about processes and things that we do, a lot of times I think it's misconstrued. And there's times that people think that I don't use certain products that I actually do, but they don't understand that because other people have come on a show and said, whoa, wait a minute, you're just using spreadsheets. We won't talk about that person, Chris. But because of that, people had this misconstrued idea of what I actually do. And actually, it's probably pretty much the same way a lot of other people are doing. There is a process that works for my brain and works through what I like to do as far as my paperwork.
Get better, not bitter.
That's right.
But as far as, like I said, we've talked about these things. There are some going to be things on the horizon, as Jeff said. We've talked about going through each other's process, what we run for business, how do we integrate, so forth and so on. And probably even making some exclusive announcements when they are available through the group first, so you guys are aware probably prior to other people. We are looking to get some good motivation, good engagement in that group. It's just a matter of just sitting down and actually plotting it out, which we will give that commitment. We just will have to figure out when to be able to do so.
Yeah. And we've got some things that have been being worked on in the background that we can't quite come out and say yet, but it's
everyone will be thoroughly hopefully it'll bring some great value to you guys. So we'll see what happens.
All right, cool. All right, let's take a quick break. And I think we're about to get out of here unless we've got some more questions in the chat room. But talking about the secret Facebook group, if you would like to support this show, go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. Our newest Patreon supporters is Ramey Bell and Pete Renowned. Yeah, something like that. Sorry, Pete. I do want to thank you guys for giving, and I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. Everybody's been great. And again, I've sent out an email to everybody. If you're still not in the Facebook group or you feel you've not been added, I've added some people that I was already friends with on Facebook. And if you're not part of the group, just let me know, and I will figure out how to get you that information, because some people are already in, they just didn't realize it. And because it's a secret Facebook group, you can't actually get to it without some sort of link or whatever. It doesn't show up in the normal things. So I had to send a person a link to get a part of that. So anyways, if you have not been interacting in there or you feel you've not been added at this point, just let me know and we'll get that taken care of.
Or if you're not getting the love, let me know and I'll take care of whoever is bullying you.
That's right. Yes. No bullying. We're all nice and we all act professional.
No jerks
except
allowed.
Me. It's my group. I can do whatever I want, but everybody else is going to act professional. I guarantee you. If not, my bouncer Paco is going to take care of them. All right. So Paco, I think this has been a little bit shorter show, but I think we've covered a lot of good information and helped people out there. And that's what we're here for. So if we don't have anything else, why don't you give a parting thought and let people know where they can find you at?
Sure. Parting thought, just, it's a Sunday. Make sure you take advantage of it. Make sure you recharge, plan out your week. I think the biggest piece of it is, you should be scared, Marvin. I think the biggest piece of it is to really plan out your week. I think you get more done when you plan out your week. So take Sunday to rest and then really figure out on how you're going to attack this week to get that much more better, that much more revenue, and get that additional client on. But, yeah, for those who want to find me, you can find me over at Podnutz Daily. The show, we haven't put out any shows recently. There's some things going on there. So hopefully once a new show comes out, we will go ahead and let everyone know. Or you could follow me over on Twitter. My handle is ChiteK CEO, ChiteKCEO, for all the mischievous things or shenanigans that I'm getting myself into in my area.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you coming on and covering for John. And for those that don't know, John is either taking care of the problem that happened Saturday or he is installing a server. One of the two. We're not sure which. I'm sure next week he'll let us know how everything went. Come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern. As a matter of fact, if you want to rest and relax, some people say they even put us on the big screen. You could do that, sit back, grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and watch us. I have no idea why you want to watch us, but you can. That's what we do. Join in on the conversation by calling in live and hanging out in the chat room. People are interacting, asking questions, all kinds of stuff going on. You can also send an email to podnutz@podnutz.com. And we appreciate every email and read everyone on the show. So anything we've asked about or talked about, feel free to let us know, and we will add that into the next shows. You can leave a voicemail, like I said, 24/7, 365 at 1-888-697-0162. We have audio available over at podnutz.com or subscribe using your favorite podcatcher. You can be notified when the show's live by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Computer Repair Podcast. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.